Come, Holy Spirit, come. Come like the fire and burn. Come like the wind and cleanse. Convict, convert, consecrate. Make us glad in thy service. I know what you all are thinking. What is this gas bag going to have to say? It's a danger going forth, as there's so many of the anecdotes have already been used. But spare me a few of your minutes here, and I'll try to convey that which many of you already know. I'm sure most of you already know that my mother was a loving, caring, generous, unpretentious, simple but elegant woman. I'm sure most of you would agree. She lived her life under three principles, three tenets for her life. Kind of guideposts. First was community. The community of this church. This loving, prayerful community. She loved this church. She loved all the many organizations that my sister and niece and nephew have mentioned. And she was a friend to so many of you. And I don't know you all by your faces, but I know all these names. I've heard them for years. There's so many E's. Edith, Irma, Edna, Evelyn. And of course there's, I can't name them all. There's Gail, and there's Annabelle, and there's some interesting names there too. There's Diane, so many of you. Kay, so many in this church from her work with the Board of Education in Fairfield. The Women's Club, as my sister has mentioned. She loved this community. She didn't begin life in this community, but she really became a big part of this community. She was a regular, frequent visitor at the library, friendlies. My brother said, have we notified ShopRite yet? May have to unload some of their coffees and chocolate supplies. But she was a member of this community, every community she lived in, she took a piece from, and she gave so much back to it. The second tenet, the second principle was family, really family, and we've heard from her grandchildren how important family was to her. So proud of her children, their spouses, her nephews, and their smoking hot wives. Grandchildren in this order: John Eric, Kristen, Elizabeth, Robbie, Kara, Ann, and Eric. She was so proud of those 7 grandchildren. She had a sweatshirt. What did it say? It was a field of...
My mom's garden.
My mom's garden. Had all the little flowers for all the 7 grandchildren. Very proud of every one of you. You know, these 7 children, among them, 10 college degrees. And one's not even out of high school yet. So there'll be more. There'll be more, I'm sure. Loved our cousins, kids. They're all here. Charlotte and Gwen, Margot, Jed, Spencer, and Thomas. She lived her life through her family. We heard also about all insisted that when we arrived somewhere that we call. She demanded that. We had to call. And back in the old days when long distance was so expensive, we'd do this little trick, We'd call up and reverse the charges. And, the operator would say, collect call from somebody we make, Ish Kabibble. Would you accept the charges? No. And then we'd yell over the line, hi, Mom, we got here. And the operator would say, you can't do that, sir. So they wouldn't accept the charges. And then, of course, we would call. It seemed like invariably Sunday nights we'd call, and I'd talk to my mother, and I'd get all the news from Caldwell, from Maryland, from West Virginia, from wherever we happened to land. And we'd talk for 20 minutes, and then to speak to your father? I said, oh, yeah, sure. And I'd hear, Bobby's on the phone. And then I'd hear in the background, why does he always call during Columbo? So many vacations we had. You reap what you sow. And, when we were coming along, our vacations would be, we go to the farm. We go to the farm, see our cousins. And my brother and I would, we used to steal eggs from the nests, take them behind the barn and throw them. My grandfather just loved that, I'm sure. They used to dump and this farm was on the Eastern Shore. Some of you may not know what we mean by the Eastern Shore. It's not, down the shore. It's not Snooki's place. It's not East Hampton or something. It's a sliver of land that makes up the eastern coast of the Chesapeake Bay. And it's somewhat remote, not as much anymore. And my mother grew up on a farm there. And I remember it through 50 years of rose-colored lenses as being this wonderfully grand, white column, terra-like place. 3 staircases, one big grand staircase, which I liken to terra. The staircase that everybody used up the back through the living room that went to the bedrooms. And then there was another one. There was another staircase. And that was like the no-no place. You can't go there. It went up over the kitchen. And one time my brother and I, when no one was around, we snuck up there. No one was around. We're not supposed to go up there. It's where the hired hands lived. And they had gas lanterns and straw beds, and it smelled like hired hands would smell after working. But I always thought of that place as I idolized that place. And I was talking to my mother about it. It was a big old farmhouse, and that's the way she described it. A drafty old farmhouse, long since been raised for what my grandmother would call a lovely bungalow, like a 3-bedroom, with not so much draft. Loved that place. Loved going back to the Eastern Shore for family reunions. Family reunions that had lots of flies, usually in July. Fresh tomatoes. Always, we never eat fried chicken anymore, but we always had it at this reunion. Fried chicken. Someone in later years would bring steamed crabs. It should have been there all along. And there was always a healthy dollop of my mother's almost famous potato salad. Simple but elegant. We have a family cookbook that's been compiled by my aunt for the last 10 years, 20 years, and all the family members have contributed their favorite recipes. Of course, there's the renegade cousin's wife who has a recipe for her leftover green squash and rutabagas that you pick up from the garden, you wash them real hard and peel them, and then you take a glass of wine. Then you get ready, you slice them hard, and then you take another glass. By the end of the recipe, who cares what she's making? But I noticed, I was looking through it right before Thanksgiving, and I noticed my mother's contributions. And there's no Asian fusion remoulade here. This is meatloaf, which I love to this day. My wife can't quite stand it. Tuna casserole. Tuna casserole. There's no lime jello there, but there was certainly was the almost famous potato salad. And I would say that my mother's, you've heard earlier that she had a real sweet tooth, but the third principle, I would say, I don't want to say just chocolate. We knew to every ice cream parlor and candy store from here to out to O'Dowd's, Carvel, Friendly's, Runnings, Bonds. What's the one down there in Bloomfield? Can't remember. Baskin Robbins, where my brother worked, and gave us healthy portions when we went there. She has simple tastes. She worked hard for the women's club, and I should have said this before, but she would collect used or dated Christmas cards, and she'd collect them from the members of the club, and she would take pinky shields, cut out a star or Santa Claus or whatever was on the Christmas card, and on the back would be the blank sheet, and she'd punch a hole in the side with a hole puncher, and she'd tie a little red string to it, and she'd sell 10 of these gift tags for $1, and the money would go to the women's club. She's done that. How many years has she done that? I can't think. A long time. So every time I would come in, we have like stacks of these in our house. Because every time we come, she'd say, here's your gift tags. And she'd say, okay, great, fine, I'll give you $1. No, I want the $1 right now. I'm not going to trust you on this. And I have some of those gift tags for you. The price has gone up a little bit, but here they are. And you can't have these. She had elegant tastes, but simple tastes. And here's what you do. Take 3 pounds of white potatoes and you carefully, lovingly pare them. You don't just peel them like that. Pare them very carefully over, and the potato peeling will go over a piece of newspaper, I think. And you pare those 3 pounds of white potatoes. You cut them into little squares, and you cook them until they're soft. And for every pound of potatoes, you boil an egg. So 3 eggs, 3 pounds of white potatoes. Let the potatoes cool. Add a little India relish. A little dry mustard. And here's the secret. You don't use mayonnaise. You have to use Miracle Whip. Miracle Whip. Every picnic, holiday, every summertime event, there'd be plenty of this almost famous potato salad. It's a simple but elegant recipe for potato salad. It's also a simple and elegant recipe